Appreciate you being here. Sorry we're getting started just a little bit late. Wanted to talk this morning about just in general where we are with the state budget. As you know, the governor made her proposal and the Senate has adopted a budget. The House is now in the throes or in the middle of dealing with its version of the budget. I believe they've got a series of public hearings that they've scheduled, and I think they're doing something tonight to hear public comment about the budget. We're here today to call on the Democratic leaders in the General Assembly and Governor Perdue to look at freezing state spending as a starting point for adopting the budget. We have handed out, in addition to our press release, the second page is actually a spreadsheet that we received from the Office of State Budget last week, and that spreadsheet indicates what the governor's office is expecting the 2008-2009 budget for the general fund to come in at. And as you can see, that final number looks like $19.5 billion. We feel like that should be the starting point for dealing with the 2009-2010 budget. And even with that, and of course we haven't seen the revised revenue projections for the current fiscal year, but even with that, you're probably looking at a situation where the current year's revenues for the general fund are going to be more like $18.5 billion. You know, the original budget was adopted with revenue numbers of about $20.8 billion as a projection. Looks like we're going to be somewhere between around $2.5 billion short of that number. Although we haven't seen the official numbers yet, everybody's been talking about how the current year's revenues are. So it's our feeling that from a fiscal prudence standpoint, we should be starting from that $19.5 billion number instead of what the Democrats have done, at least the first two swings at the budget have done, and they've started from the number that was budgeted for last year and talked about cuts. We may at some point actually see a need for real cuts in the budget, but that has not occurred as of yet with the two Democratic budgets that we've seen. The governor's budget actually increases spending over this $19.5 billion figure by $1.5 billion. The Senate budget increases spending by the same amount, although through a sleight of hand, they take $900 million off of their number to make it look like they're actually spending less money. But their budget is actually about $21 billion as well. The other thing that that Republicans would call for and think is something that, for prudence sake, should be done is we need to have something in place that looks at the spending side of the ledger. We've heard the Democrats talk about their need for additional revenue. We've heard them talk about the additional revenue, or the revenue that's coming from the stimulus package, but there's been no discussion whatsoever about putting constraints on the growth in state spending. And remember, one of the main reasons that we've got the problem we have now with our budget is because of the growth in spending over the past 7 or 8 years that has far exceeded the rate of inflation or the rate of population growth in North Carolina. Remember, just a short 7 or 8 years ago, we were looking at a budget that was $13 or $14 billion, and now we're talking about budgets in the $20 to $21 billion range. Our state has grown, but it has not grown that fast, and that is the primary driver of the problems we've got with the budget at this point. The only other thing that I've got, and I'll turn it over to Representative Stam, is the weekly update on our lost probationers. Last week we understood that there were 12,692 convicted criminals that the state probation office could not locate. This week that number is 12,790. They've lost 98 in the past week. So we again urge the Division of Community Corrections to update the information they've got on their website and to come out on a weekly or a periodic basis with a top 10 by county or at least by region, so that the press can highlight the need for locating these convicted criminals and call on the public for assistance. And I'll turn it over to Representative Stam.
Thank you, Senator Berger. On the probation question, there's been an idea floated around that I think has a lot of merit. Let's have our bail bondsmen help us get in the probation violators. Let judges set people on probation on condition they post a bond in some cases, in appropriate cases. Just something to think about. Now, a little perspective on this proposed spending of $19.5 billion. The Democrats will tell you that the sky will fall, the earth will erupt, and there'll be revolution in the streets if we spend $19.5 billion this year. Well, what is $19.5 billion? Well, it's about what we spent 2 years ago, and if you adjusted for inflation and population, it's about where we were 3 years ago. And I, think back 3 years. Did the sky fall? Did the earth erupt? Was there a revolution in the streets? Well, no, not really. Things actually were okay. I think what Senator Berger has set out as a target for spending this year is very achievable, responsible, and we can do it. And for that, we would not need any tax rate increases at all. We would need some of the federal stimulus money to be spent, but that's probably the Democrats are going to propose spending that anyway. But we would not need to raise tax rates. Thank you. Questions? Senator Berger will.
Yep. Questions? Matt.
Getting into the Senate finance package, now that you've had some time to kind of go over it at this point, looking at the change from now to that plan, would what we say around here a lot, the working family, would they pay more or less, the same, if this was spread and broadened the base?
It looks as though a lot of some of the folks in the middle income level will probably pay more in income tax. If you look at the bottom line on the income tax, there's actually a net increase in the revenue from the income tax. That's got to be coming from somewhere. And when you change the beginning number to AGI, in essence, what you're doing is you're applying the tax to a different base, which in many cases is a higher number than the number we're starting from at the present time. So I would say that that as far as income tax is concerned, even with the reduction in rate, that it's likely that folks will see their tax bill go up.
What about the sales tax, spreading the sales tax? If they're going to pay more in income tax, would they also be paying more in sales tax, you think?
It depends on what types of transactions they engage in. If obviously, if you don't buy any products or if you don't engage in any transactions that involve the services that are being taxed, then you probably would pay less. But I would say that overall, if you're talking about a tax revenues that increase by over $600 million on an annual basis, somebody's paying more taxes, and I would say that that's probably spread amongst the population greatly. And then when you take into account the increase in the cigarette excise tax and the alcohol tax, that studies seem to show hits lower income folks more than, or at least as much as the higher income folks. So it looks to me like if you want to talk about tax fairness, they've spread the additional tax pretty well across the population.